Okay, it's been a little bit since we've filmed a video with this background, but I wanted to spend a little time today to talk about the Vladislav Gavrikov situation. I know I've mentioned it a couple of times in some Blue Jackets kind of like blurb videos, but I just want to make one final video about it before a deal is made. This is going to be the last time that I rant and rave and complain about it, but I do feel like there has been some significant changes since I last talked about it. So we're just going to kind of recap this whole situation in general. So he was healthy scratched for trade-related reasons very shortly after Jacob Chikrin had the same thing done to him in Arizona. And at the time, there are a number of reportedly interested partners, Boston being the front runners among them. And as time went on, the Bruins were pretty clearly named as the main trade destination. Aaron Portzline reporting that there was potentially a deal that was done and in place pending Boston moving salary. More on that later. And as the days progressed, it got a little more frustrating and it became pretty clear that Columbus wasn't really going to help Boston with the moving salary part. And so as this deal is kind of reportedly in the works but not happening because another move needs to happen, the Washington Capitals make Dmitry Orlov available, and Boston responds by pretty much swooping in and making that deal almost immediately. They also get Hathaway from the Capitals in that deal. And after that event, reports have come out indicating that the Blue Jackets might feel a little betrayed by the move, a little miffed. But honestly, I don't share that sentiment. I think the Bruins just got a little bit of a better deal. And honestly, Jarmo probably would have done the same thing if a different team had come along and offered a better trade package for Gavrikov than what Boston was offering them. Response from the Blue Jackets fan base to the situation, I feel like, has been kind of interesting to say the least. I feel like there are two different sides of a very bad and extreme pendulum that people seem to be moving towards. On one end, you have people saying that Jarmo Kekalainen should be fired for this reason alone. I mean, not even getting into some of the other reasons people have. There are arguments to be made that do have some merit, but I do feel like the trade deadline's not even over, and to argue that, for this situation is the reason that Jarmo should be completely given up on and fired. I feel like that's a little bit irrational to argue that before the deadline even ends. Now, if the deadline comes and goes and there's no deal made for Gavrikov, or the return is super, very little or very underwhelming, then maybe we can have that talk for how he handled this situation. But for right now, the results of this Gavrikov situation are still pending. The deadline is still about a week away, so I don't think that it's prudent to make any real judgments on the situation quite yet. However, there is the other side that just says that, this isn't even any sort of problem. This isn't even an inconvenience. In Jarmo we trust still. The dentist is going to get to work or whatever. And I do feel like that is kind of lying to yourself and pretending that there's not a problem here when there is a little bit of at least an obstacle now. Now, we don't know if the unwillingness to eat salary from the Blue Jackets side comes from Jarmo and JD and company, or if it comes from ownership. If it's the former and it's the front office just being really wanting to hammer in that they're not going to eat salary, that does seem like a little bit of unnecessary stubbornness on their part. However, if it is ownership, then Yarmo's hands were pretty much tied and the front office was tied. If ownership isn't going to let you eat some dead cap in order to make this deal happen, then you're just kind of clinging to hope that Boston will make the move necessary, and it turns out they weren't going to, at least with the Blue Jackets for Gavrikov. People who think that the Bruins kind of were shady in this business dealing and that how dare they do this to the Blue Jackets, I think that is a bit naive as well. I know Jarmo and Don Sweeney have a bit of a friendship or a connection because they were defensive partners in hockey or whatever, but to me this is trade deadline business. This is not friend business. This is the NHL trade deadline, and the Bruins found a better deal, and they had an opportunity to swoop in and get more than they would have got from Columbus, and they did so. And I feel like that's unfortunate for the Blue Jackets. Obviously, I'm not happy about it, but for the Bruins, it makes too much sense not to do it. And the reality seems to be that we're just kind of back to square one on this Gavrikov deal. We're now collecting, who are, the interested parties still now that the Bruins are out of the picture. And Jarmo probably does have a tougher time asking for that first and third price point like he got for David Savard, because Gavrikov is not the only option on the market like David Savard was. When Savard was on the market, if you wanted a guy like David Savard, you had to go to Columbus, and you had to inquire about David Savard because Nashville went on their run and Matthias Ekholm was off the market. Now with Gavrikov, you got guys like Jakob Chychrun available, Dmitry Orlov being available for all of 1 hour before Boston got him. And if you're going to ask for that much of a price point, interested teams might just think to themselves, well, why not we just pony up and get Jakob Chychrun, who is signed to longer term. I know Gavrikov has said there are reports that he's hesitant to sign an extension for Canadian teams, which teams like the Oilers aren't going to be willing to spend that much of a premium for a rental at this point. And as they prepare for their game against the Oilers, he still remains a healthy scratch. He's still on the Columbus Blue Jackets roster. And again, I do feel like it's not time to absolutely get the torches and the pitchforks out to storm Yarmo's office yet or anything. But it does seem like they kind of had something with the Bruins, and they kind of waited for too long, whatever the reason was. And now this Gavrikov situation seems to be a little bit worse off for wear for it. But again, still plenty of time to make something else happen. It's just been a frustrating slog through these events. I feel like I'm getting tired of refreshing my social media timeline and hoping to see that something happened so we get some clarity on this. I mean, watch, now that I'm filming this and between that and uploading it, something will have happened and this video will be completely irrelevant. But for the time being, the situation is basically back where it was at a week ago, and that's something that is still a little frustrating, but that's essentially all I wanted to say. I just kind of want to get this out of the way before the Blue Jackets did play their game this afternoon against the Oilers. And again, I plan on this being the last time I talk about this before an actual deal is made. When there is something substantial and concrete and an actual trade that happens, I will cover it here on this channel. So thank you all for watching. If you made it this far into the video, I'll see you at the next one.